Welcome everyone to the first of what we hope will be many educational webinars offered to the dressage community. This webinar is being provided in English, however we welcome questions in French. Celine Hutchison-Majerus would be happy to assist with those French questions. This is guaranteed to be an informative hour. If we don't get to everyone's questions during the webinar, we will endeavor to respond to them via email after the session. For those not familiar with the Zoom features, we would ask that everyone mute their line to avoid background noise. If you wish to submit questions during the session, we ask that you use the question and answer feature, which you can find at the bottom of your screen if on a computer. We have a lot of people attending the session tonight, so please be patient if we experience technical difficulties. So without further delay, I turn it over to our moderator, Ron King, for our introductions.
Hi, welcome Canadian equestrian community. My name is Ron King. I'm an Equestrian Canada certified coach and dressage judge living in our nation's capital. This interactive session on fundamental dressage training is brought to you by Dressage Canada. During this unprecedented time, when many fellow equestrians are perhaps unable to ride or get any coaching, it is great to have an opportunity to come together and discuss the sport we all love. We're all in luck today as we have a great 2-for-1 deal with Tina and Jaimey Irwin joining us from Southern Ontario. Welcome Tina and Jaimey, and thank you for joining us. I would also like to thank all of you for joining us today, as well as Equestrian Canada for offering this educational season to the community, this session. So starting off with Tina, is an Equestrian Canada certified high performance coach and was recently named to the 2019 Equestrian Canada Equestrian of the Year, earning the prestigious Dr. George Jacobson Trophy. She had an incredible 2019 season, winning team gold and individual silver with Laurencio at the Pan American Games in Lima, Peru. Tina is no stranger to the Pan Ams. She was also part of the 2011 silver medal dressage team in Guadalajara, Mexico. Jaimey is a seasoned FEI dressage athlete, trainer, and certified high performance coach who has competed extensively in both North America and Europe. Jaimey represented North America competing amongst the world's best dressage athletes in 2013 Ream Accra FEI World Cup Dressage Final in Gothenburg, Sweden, on Lindor's finest. He was also a member of the first ever gold medal winning Canadian team at the 2017 Nations Cup in Wellington, Florida, on Donegal V, also placing silver individually. Jaimey has coached many young riders to medals at the North American Youth Championships. And together they formed Team Irwin. Both Jaimey and Tina trained in Germany with Holger Munstermann, the well-known World Cup competitor, who himself trained with highly respected masters Rainer Klimke, Harry Bolt, and Willi Schulteis. Together, Tina and Jaimey, dubbed Team Irwin, are committed to guiding and mentoring Canada's next generation of dressage athletes. Offering one of the top young rider programs in the country, Team Irwin has helped numerous athletes qualify for and compete at the FEI North American Youth Championships. So starting off the session today, we have a training scale, or as all of you know it as the Dressage Pyramid. And we do have a screen coming up soon with that pyramid. And the foundation of this dressage training is rhythm. And from rhythm, we work towards suppleness both laterally and longitudinally, and connection, does the horse accept the contact, impulsion, so the energy from behind, straightness, and collection. And just as a thought as well, Tina and Jaimey are gonna pipe in soon, but maybe we can talk also that it's not, many people think of this as a very linear thing, like one step, then it's the next step, but potentially they work sometimes as a team in unison to help each other out. And so I don't know, Jaimey and Tina, if you can elaborate on that.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I think definitely we can do that.
Absolutely. So yeah, well, we'd first of all like to thank you for having us. We're looking forward to doing this first webinar. Thanks to EC for organizing. And we're hoping to give you some education as well as a little entertainment tonight. Hopefully not too much entertainment because the kids are watching a movie and occupied. So we're hoping they're not going to bust in here.
Yeah, then we might have a little bit too much entertainment.
That might be too much probably, but we'll keep it to dressage.
Exactly.
For now.
Yeah, we were very happy to be asked to talk about the dressage training scale. Like Ron just described, and it's on the screen: rhythm, suppleness, connection, impulsion, straightness, and collection. And we would like to explain how, in our view, the way we look at the training program, the training pyramid, is something that we've studied for quite a while. We both trained in Germany, and we've adapted the German training system for our own method. And yeah, we'd like to try to break it down for you today to help you understand the developments through the different elements of the training scale.
Right. So the first element, of course, is rhythm, which is a very important one. First, I'd like to say when training a horse, we must make sure that we start with a proper foundation. Very much like building a house. I think without a strong foundation, over time, the house will collapse. So if there's nothing to hold what you build, it will crumble. So it is really important that a horse gets a proper start through a very strong, proper foundation, which is what the training skill allows us to do. So the first step is rhythm. Rhythm has three main aspects to it. One is the regularity of the beats, also the regularity and correctness of footfalls, and the tempo. So the first step, of course, is that the horse has to go forward, which, you know, without forward in the walk, trot, or canter, we are not able to really look at the purity and the correctness of the gaits. So it has
to be a nice, good quality energy moving forward in a good tempo.
Right. And I think what is also really important to mention is that this should be sustained as we move through the levels, and we should hold this in the highest regard. So a lot of times you'll see one of the gaps in our sport is you'll see that gaits will deteriorate as you move up the levels of the training scale, or also through the higher levels of dressage, competing as well. And that is something that should not happen. The gait should actually improve and not deteriorate.
That's correct. Yeah, it's the idea of taking the horse's natural way of going, its natural gaits, and making them better to their best potential. And it's very important that you're always assessing the quality of the gaits, that what you're doing in your training and in your riding, that you're not allowing those gaits to deteriorate, that they keep a very clean, correct rhythm, very regular, good energy and forward thinking.
Right. And I think I want to add to that, that this requires a lot of discipline, because it takes time to do this properly. So as riders, we are accountable for this. And I think a lot of times people want to skip through the steps a little bit quicker because everybody wants to do the fun stuff, you know, and get to doing the tricks and the movements. But like I explained in the beginning, without the solid foundation, eventually you will probably end up with some problems and some holes in your training, which will show up if you don't do it properly. So again, yes, this requires a lot of discipline from all of us who are accountable for how we train our horses.
Yeah, and that's a really good place to bring us into the next phase of the scale, which would be suppleness. As a suppleness through relaxation. And I think these two intertwine, it's suppleness with relaxation in the same element. In my mind, the horse can't be supple unless it's relaxed, or unless they're relaxed. they can't be relaxed unless they're supple. So I think this is something to work together with, and that's why I like to say suppleness through relaxation. Their muscles and their joints have to be able to work freely through their body. As I said, it's not just a physical suppleness, physical relaxation. It has to also come from the mind. Without the mental relaxation, of course, the physical is not going to be there, and you will never get access to proper suppleness, where you feel the muscles are soft, they're swinging, the horse is moving freely, very bendable, very adjustable. And without this phase really being focused on, you're going to run into a lot of blockages, I think, as you go. And you see when the suppleness and the relaxation is not there, you get tension. When you get tension, then that forward energy that you have from the hind leg has nowhere to go because it's blocked. So there has to be this suppleness that allows it to travel through the body and come over the back and into the connection. So this is very important phase to, they're all very important, but this is a very important phase that we need to focus on. Also, by really stretching the horse forward and down gives a nice suppling effect over their back. It also really puts them into a state of relaxation. I know a lot of horses, when they get tense, they get nervous. Quite often we'll go right back to the suppling stage and let them go forward and down and relax and do lots of bending exercises, serpentines, some transitions, circles, just that they really breathe and relax and stay supple through their body. And by stretching, it seems to really promote the relaxation and the suppleness.
And I think back to what Ron was saying in the beginning was, you know, how some of these elements of the training scale kind of intertwine with one another. And I think there you can see also the suppleness what Jaimey was just explaining would then help your rhythm.
Yeah, that's why we jumped right in there and got right to it, because we were wanting to explain that as we go, that they kind of blend in with one another, you know, within a certain reason, or within reason. But then, yeah, it's not just this one and then this one, but there is a little bit of overlap as well.
Right. They mesh a little bit together.
Yeah.
So I think that brings us to the next element. Oh, sorry, were you not done? Oh, sorry. Jaimey has more to say. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, as the horse is supple, is moving nicely forward, downward, over the back to the connection, then it's seeking the bit, coming into the contact, and ready then for you. For me.
Contact. Okay, great. Thank you for the setup. It was so good.
That's what I'm here for.
So the connection or contact, I think, is something that we all strive for every day on every different horse that we ride, to seek the ultimate perfect contact, which is very challenging at times. So seeking a correct contact, of course, is when the horse goes forward from pushing from both hind legs and accepts contact evenly in both reins and has a nice closed happy mouth. So, you know, that is sort of one of the most difficult things. I think a lot of things are difficult in dressage, but I think to really find the perfect contact day in and day out is a tricky one. You often have horses that are too strong or too light. So trying to find the balance of putting there somewhere in the middle. First contact requires the rider to make contact, to hold contact, so that the horse is able to seek contact and go to the bit, which I think can be quite a misconception sometimes. Often you'll see through lessons and clinics where people think, well, I have to have a light contact, and so they kind of throw the reins away, or they think, well, if I hold the reins, then I'm pulling backwards. So there is a difference. Yeah,
they need to be able to create a connection that the horse is able to move into, come onto, and accept. And that also brings us to the point of the rider, which I think is obviously very important. And getting a really good, correct, balanced, and independent seat as a rider, because as you're riding and trying to ride the horse and work the horse and going up the level, you have to be effective, and you have to be able to give the aids in a way that you're not confusing the horse. They have to be done independently, and that comes from having a very correct and independent seat. This is something that we see a lot of, that the riders then get holding their balance with the reins, which gives an incorrect aid to the horse, ends up riding a little backwards, gets tight, gets tense, and then also gripping with the legs. And so you're not able to maintain a good rhythm. You're not able to ride supplely into the connection. So I think it's very important that we say with riders that one of the most important things in learning right from the beginning is to learn to have a very correct and independent seat.
Yes, absolutely. It's crucial. So when doing that, obviously you want to start out the best way possible and not just ride anywhere when you're learning how to ride, but of course it's to ride with the best, to learn from the best. I think in anything you do, that is very important. And so really to do your homework and to look not just, just because someone is a good rider doesn't necessarily make them a good coach. Of course, that there are many great riders that are great coaches, but it doesn't always happen that way. So I think you need to take a look at the coach's students and what they've produced, and do your homework in really deciding that. And I'm sure many of you are going to think, well, okay, I started riding a while ago, so that ship has sailed, but what can I do now? So, well, what you can do now is ride without stirrups. That's a great way to improve your seat. And also lunging lessons if you have a horse that is available and safe and that is accustomed to that, of course, safety first. But we use a lot of no stirrup work within our own riding, even now. And I think that that's really important to not feel like,
don't feel it's just something that beginners do. That's what I see, when you take somebody's stirrups away, they think, oh man, now I'm getting in trouble. No. It's just to help you find that place in the saddle, to really help you understand what's going on, and to give you that independent seat that you're able to work with proper aids. I know many all top riders that are really concerned about their seat and really want that perfect seat. They do ride without stirrups, and it's a huge benefit.
I mean, we are achieving that, trying to achieve that every single day in our own riding, constantly trying to improve our seat. And I know with our own Grand Prix horses, sometimes when things go awry, like you're not getting your flying changes, there's a great example. It's really interesting. We take the stirrups away, and you're able to sit properly, because a lot of times in flying changes, you start to throw yourself around a little bit and put your leg back too far, and then the changes don't work. And so it's really always a good learning experience, and also it's just very valuable and effective to take your
That's where everything stems from too. So the seat is very important. That's like the motherboard of the computer. That's where the information has to really stem from. That has to be the most solid to be able to ride the horse properly, then into the connection, and not use the contact as a balancing beam.
Right. Yeah. So as important as it is to train our horses through this this training scale, it's also important to continue our own education and continue to work on our seat to improve, so that we can be the most effective in helping our horses be great.
That's right. And so, from the connection, again, once the horse is having a good regular rhythmic gait, it's working through the body with the suppleness, seeking the connection, as this established connection and contact, then we start to add impulsion. After the impulsion, it's a propulsive energy coming from the back end. It's generated from the hindquarters to push through the body, through the back, over the back, into the connection, and gives a sense of real power in the gait. This is where you start to see more suspension in the trot, more expression in oh, sorry, I'm leaning back. I'm going to fade out of the screen here, sorry. Yeah, more suspension, more jump in the canter, and brings out more expression in the gaits.
Yeah, and I think that impulsion is actually the ingredient that makes dressage exciting. You know, you see at the upper levels when you watch the Grand Prix, for example, you know, these horses are so powerful and so coiled up, and it looks so effortless. The riders can put that power wherever they want. They can ride it forward, they can bring it back. And I think that's what impulsion at the highest degree
That's
is,
at the highest degree.
About.
This is at the beginning, and it's something else that we need to really touch on, that you have to also be careful that you don't ask for too much too early. You have to ask for the impulsion, but at the same time, that brings into a little bit more of a higher energy. And if the horse is a little bit, if you have too much and it's not able to handle it, or it makes a little bit stressed, then again, you're going to lose your connection, then you're going to lose your suppleness, your relaxation, lose the rhythm, and then you're going to see it trickle down the scale again, and things are going to fall apart. So it's important that you add impulsion, but it's not that you go for as you're developing, when you're developing the horse, that you don't go for more than what you can handle. Exactly. Mm-hmm. I find good exercises for creating the impulsion, riding half halts, riding transitions, bringing the horse back onto the hind leg, and then pushing forward and really having that good thrust of that forward push forward in the gait. Again, more transitions to and from the gaits, within the gait, the forward and back. Those are all very good exercises that really teaches the horse to shift the weight back onto the hind leg, to bend the hocks a little bit more and get that push forward with the impulsion. And again, when you're adding the impulsion, like I said, it's very important that you're always aware of the previous elements, that they are staying correct and pure. The connection is staying correct. They're still staying suppleness, that they're working with that impulsion through their body in a supple way and relaxed way, and that the rhythm is staying very clear and honest in the gaits.
Mm-hmm. So, are you done?
I don't know, maybe. I guess.
Okay. Just want to make sure this time.
Okay.
So that brings us to our next element, which is straightness. Now, of course, all horses are born crooked, and straightening them is a never-ending task.
Just like us. We're all born crooked. One-handed, right, left.
Right.
They are as well.
Exactly. So that's also another challenging step. You know, and I think
it's one of the most difficult ones.
It
is
is
really to be able to ride a horse properly straight.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of times, well, like you just said, we're not straight. So when we're not straight, how are we to make the horse straight? Okay, so we do the best we can, really. Are we ever going to make them perfect? Maybe not, but we try. We try to be as perfect as possible. Yeah. We're always striving for more. So I think that, you know, that the horse goes evenly into both reins, between both legs, left and right, and really that it's to maintain the health of the horse. It's also very important that they use themselves correctly when they're straight, to maintain the soundness and promoting equal wear. Exactly. And wear on muscles, tendons, joints, and ligaments.
Exactly.
So,
and to ride the horse, to bring the ride the horse straight. Again, like we said earlier, the horses, like people, they're all one-sided. So it's up to you to recognize which is their weaker side. Every horse has a weaker side. Every rider has a weaker side, and to strengthen that weaker side. So really to focus on getting the weaker side stronger, and keeping the stronger side supple and elastic and adjustable. As well, looking at ourselves You know, you see somebody going down the arena and they're hanging off the side and oh, my horse isn't straight, my horse isn't straight. Well, it can't really be straight when you're falling off the horse. Again, when the horse is in its natural balance without the rider, it has to learn to balance itself with the rider. And then, so you have to keep that in mind as you're trying to align the horse straight. You also have to be really correct and really straight yourself to be able to influence the horse without confusing it.
Right. So I think, you know, just like the horses getting some body work, it's also just as valuable for the riders to try to make ourselves as straight as possible. So of course, you can do that through different therapies, chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, stretching, exercising, all of these different things that we do for the horses as well. So that really helps the horse also, I think, when you are helping them when they're working through some difficult times in trying to build up their weaker side, is doing some therapies for them to help alleviate some muscle soreness and pain, and so that they're able to work without that pain and move through that gradually. Right. and build the muscle on the weaker side. And
I think that's really important too, talking about possible pain, that when a horse is really one-sided, quite often that there is something there physically that is giving them pain, and they can't talk, they can't tell us. So that's just something that you need to listen to. Yeah. The horses don't generally like to show pain. It makes them seem vulnerable. They're coming from being in the wild. They need to protect themselves by not becoming vulnerable, by being able to run, not look weak. So this is something that you can feel before you can see generally. And if it's ignored, it will wear and wear and wear to the point where they're going to have an injury. So when you do feel something, a horse that's very crooked and very difficult to straight, and they are very weak on one side, it's important to really make sure that you're having it checked out by the vet, and that the horse's body is in the best working condition possible to be able to do what we ask, because we do ask a lot of them in dressage. We ask a lot of their entire body. Yeah. And the straightness, it's a very important thing, and I think it's something that we do in many of the sections, getting the horse really connected into the outside rein. It's carrying onto that inside hind leg, very straight through the body. Then it sets them nicely up for the collection. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So yeah, that brings us to the last phase. Yeah, and that's you. That's me. There you go. You get to do more talking. Go ahead. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So the last phase is the collection. It's kind of like the cherry on top, the icing on the cake. In collection, the horse shifts more and more weight onto the hind leg. It takes more weight onto the hind leg. You need to shift your weight. I need to shift my weight forward so I don't disappear out of the screen. Sorry, keep forgetting about that. It enables them to carry more weight behind by bringing the hind leg more under, which then allows the front end to come up, get lighter in a nice uphill way, pull up, highest point, nose a little bit in front of the vertical. This lightens the forehand, makes a nice lighter contact in your hand, and then brings the horse into self-carriage. In collection, this is also where the expression can really be developed and built, and the movements can become brilliant. And I think that's what we all strive for, is that we're able to really be able to cultivate the horse and train the horse that it can be brilliant. That for me is the ideal of dressage, is that the horses be able to dance. Yeah. I think like a dancer, very, very supple, but with power, with balance and grace. And when it's done really correctly and very well, it's unbelievable. Gives you goosebumps. And yeah, I think seeing the training scale and just explaining it and seeing how one thing, the bottom is very, very important, that the rhythm is always number one, that we keep the clarity and purity of the gait there, and then how each phase works nicely into one another to that end result of collection. Yeah, it really gives you the idea that when it's done properly, it is easy to do, but not easy to do. But you're set up to do it, I guess I should say.
Well, we were discussing this the other day when we were riding our more advanced horses, and we were discussing how quickly with the advanced horses you actually move through the training skill. Once they're well versed in all of this and have that solid base and foundation, you know, really your warm-up is your rhythm, suppleness, connection. And then you move into the working phase. Which is, so this is where you intertwine the scale a little bit. The working phase is more the connection, impulsion, straightness, which leads you to the end phase, which is, of course, your impulsion, straightness, and collection. And with the horses that are trained to the top level of Grand Prix, you get there very quickly because you just kind of tick through the boxes, and because they've spent years perfecting the base and the basics and solidifying it.
Yeah, and there is a phrase I really like. It's that you have to go slowly to go quickly. And I think this is something that we have to really believe in dressage training. Sometimes it feels like we never get off of the 20-meter circle. We're just working on transitions. But when this is really ingrained and set up, then the rest seem to come very quickly and very easily because the horse is really prepared for it. Oh, we got to change of screen.
Yeah, that's great.
We're out.
Well, no, you're not totally out yet.
Oh, okay.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to send in some questions in advance. And it was great to have so much interest and questions come our way. So let's begin. The first question is from Rowena from Hastings. And they would like to know, knowing that most of us have not been riding since the state of emergency was declared, how would you suggest we get our horses fit and flexible again? And what is the reasonable time frame to make that happen for a horse that was in regular work?
So I think that's a great question because so many of you are going to be in the same boat. Not all of you have the luxury of having your horses in a training program while this is happening. So it's a really great question. First off, I think we have to remember that every horse is very much an individual. So this answer is going to vary depending on the horse. Not every horse is the same. So there's not one answer for that question.
No. It depends on the horse, depends on the situation, depends on the conditions. Is your horse a very feisty horse? Is it a horse that's pretty chilled out? If it's a feisty horse, hasn't been ridden in a while, obviously you would want to lunge it to make sure that you're not going to get on and get bucked off.
But I think even if it's a horse that isn't necessarily a hot horse, you know, I'm always a believer of lunging doesn't hurt. You know, safety first. So
can't hurt might help.
You know, if you put the horse on the lunge line and you see that the horse is fine, great, then go ahead and get on. But I think, you know, always to just take that extra precaution. Nobody is a hero here. You don't need to, you know, prove anything to anyone. So safety first. Also making sure your horse has had turnout if it's possible prior to you getting on. And then, of course, lunging so that you can release some excess energy.
Or also, I think lunging is a good way to, when you haven't ridden the horse, you haven't seen the horse moving. It's a nice way to assess how they're feeling in their body, how they're moving. Are they injured? You know, do they look as if, are they sound? And that kind of thing. And then you're assessing their mental state as well.
The other thing to remember is because the horses will have had some time off, is that they may have high energy in the beginning, but then very quickly deteriorate due to muscle tiredness and not being fit, basically. So I think, you know, starting off gradually, just kind of
doing
using
a very logical,
common sense and doing a little bit. And then of course the next day the horse might be a little muscle sore. So again, gradually building on getting your horse back in shape, which you may be in the same position as the horse. You know, if you haven't done much either, it could actually work out really well. You might both be muscle sore. That might be
the best situation. You ride one day and then can't ride for 4 because you can't move, and then you ride again. And then you know possible. How your horse feels like. I know when you're riding every day, but you do something different, like weeding or something.
Yeah, we just planted a garden, which I'm regretting now that it's supposed to go below 0 degrees this weekend. Great. But, you know. Yeah,
just using muscles that we haven't used. We were very sore for a few days. So you have to keep that in mind when it's your horse, taking it very gradually, assessing them. If they feel sore the next day, lay off, and just take your time. And
taking a lot of breaks. You know, like don't get on and go and go and go and go and go. And
don't try and ride the way that you were before you.
No, and I think just be smart. Like assess the amount they're sweating, how hard they're breathing, and just be aware and take more breaks and start out slowly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. The next one is from Gail C. Can you provide an explanation of the process and exercises to create softness and relaxation?
Sure. I think actually just by covering what we've covered with the training scale, talking about the rhythm and the suppleness and the softness, lots of transitions, and again, making sure that you're adhering to the pyramid, the training scale. That the rhythm and the suppleness and the connection are at the forefront. Some serpentines, like I said before, lots of transitions, half halts. Again, when you're trying to have suppleness, relaxation, rhythm, talking about how these kind of intertwine a little bit together. If you get on a very sensitive horse or a nervous horse, even if it's been lunged or whatever, some of them are just very on, and you feel the rhythm in the walk. It's a little bit all over the place. They're tense, they're nervous. Sometimes it is better to just get going, start your trotting, start into some exercises, some nice forward, downward stretching if you can. Have some serpentines, some circles, transitions, and half halts through the gaits to help promote this relaxation and softness. And I think that's something that will definitely help.
Yeah.
All right. And the next question is from, actually, it's anonymous. Do you need to do the training scale in order? Can I not use collection or collected work to improve other elements below, for example?
So, well, with some of the training elements, like we discussed earlier, I think that those are okay to use. But for me and for us, I can
say the collection, to do the collection first, I think is not.
Collection is the end product.
Yes.
And when you're looking at how the scale develops the horse and prepares the horse for the collection, to do the collection first to help you come to one of the other elements that for us doesn't really logically make sense.
I mean, one way I can explain it is at the moment, our youngest, she is in kindergarten and she's learning to read. So when kindergarten started in September, she was learning her alphabet. Then she was learning the sounds that those letters make. Next, she was learning sight words, and then putting those words into sentences. And now, 6 months later or more, she's starting to read books. So in the beginning, it's very slow. It's building upon what you, really the basics, and eventually you're able to read fully. So this is, I think, a good example of this scenario, with the doing the collection first. You know, it doesn't make sense. And I think you're bound to have some holes in your training.
You definitely will.
And potentially behavioral issues. So yeah, I would caution that that's not the right thing to do.
Okay. From Joan A, what would be an ideal training program for a horse competing at 4th level? How many days a week? Breakdown of work, hacks, and addressing weaker areas.
Yeah, for the 4th level, I guess it also depends on why the horse is at 4th level. If it's a horse that can't go on to do Prix St. George and I1, if it's sort of maxed out at 4th level, if it's older, or if it's a younger horse coming up. I think those are factors that we have to know. If it's an older horse and it's been doing 4th level and it's maxed out, just basically keeping it fit, keeping it supple, keeping it on your aids, not grinding it every day and trying to go through the whole 4th level routine, and doing the pirouettes.
Yeah, not putting wear and tear.
The pirouettes are the movement that, or the series of changes that hold people back from going further. So when they're finding it difficult at that level, and that's sort of their max, it's more important about keeping their body functioning, again, supple, happy, and just touching on different movements, instead of doing all of the movements all the time.
If it's a younger horse, then you know, you may be gearing up and doing a little bit more, building the fitness a little bit more, building the strength at that level. So you kind of go back to that every horse is an individual, and you have to build a program around that horse and where they're at, and also their temperament a little bit, and all of that. So I think it's hard to say for sure. I think when you're at 4th level, you know, you're definitely riding probably at least 3 days a week, I would think, because you're fairly serious, and it's, you know, you're close to Prix St. George. So I would say that would be a minimum of working days, if not 4. And then I think hacking is great, and exposing your horse to other situations and is great when it's possible. Of course, living in Canada, we're a little bit limited with our weather, but when you can get outside and you can get in a field and you can expose the horse to different things, that also helps keep them happy in their mind, which will
show in their work.
Exactly. Keep them motivated. So
the idea is to have a horse that is very happy and motivated and working with you in a nice relaxed way. So when you keep it fun for them and you give them the breaks by hacking or just changing the scenery, it really helps, and it's very beneficial and important.
Yeah, so I like the question. I think that it's great for sure to incorporate some hacking when it's possible into your workout routine with your horses. But as far as the workload goes, basically with the factors we touched on, you have to take those into consideration.
The next question comes all the way from Australia, Mandy. And her question is, I use my core to stand erect, to sit in a chair, to stabilize most movements in life. And it acts by itself. But I'm still unsure how to activate it on demand when sitting on a horse and maintaining the relaxed body parts as when I'm standing, etc. How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it comes back to seat and balance. You know, being strong in your core off the horse is important. I think you have to be able to work on that, absolutely. But when you're on the horse, it's, for me, it's basically just having good posture and staying on the vertical. So I don't think, I don't really think about it when I think, okay, now I have to, tighten my stomach muscles. That's not what I'm thinking. When the horse gets strong, I try to sit straight on the vertical and sit against the horse, which is then when I can feel my core engaged and I can feel my stomach muscles working when I'm sitting against the horse, and also in the sitting trot when you are supporting yourself independently, your seat from your hands, and then you can feel those stomach muscles working automatically. So I don't really think it's something you have to think about. It's just something that happens when you are in the right position.
Yeah, if you have that natural body posture, it obviously is much easier. So I think it's something that you can always practice, like what she said was in the kitchen when she sits. And this is very, very true. And this is what we also try to do when you're sitting, when you're standing, when you're doing whatever, really working on your posture so that it comes second nature. And when you do have to sit and keep yourself strong through the core, your position is already there for you. And then the seat, staying in the saddle allows you to use your core. And I think that's maybe something that's really important, that if the seat isn't in the saddle properly, then you're not able to use your core, because then you start using your legs and your arms and everything else is
so again,
taking over.
Again, doing no stirrup work, that's going to engage your core.
Yeah.
Because you cannot hold on any other way. You don't have the stirrups to balance from. So you need to sit on your seat bones, and that will help.
The only other people have always asked, what can we do to help strengthen our core? We're not a physiotherapist or a professional personal trainer, but just thinking about that, the big yoga balls, just trying to find something that you have to balance yourself on that moves underneath you sort of freely, because the horse moves freely. It goes here, it goes there, and you don't exactly know where it's going to go. And you have to be able to support yourself through your core to stay straight. So something like that might be a good exercise.
Yeah.
All right. And from Linda, if you had any influence over competition test content, what would you change, especially at the lower levels?
Yeah, I don't know. The tests do seem to be very well laid out for the development, that I think.
Yeah, I agree. At the lower levels, I think they're pretty good.
The only thing that I was thinking about was, with the fourth level, or not the fourth level, but the 4-year-old test, where the horses are young and they want to promote the horses going forward, and at the beginning there's no halt to help kind of get them going and have the flow in the test start. That might be something to implement in a training level, because people, maybe they're not on a 4-year-old, but they're on a 5-year-old, and they're trying to do the same thing. They're at the same level, and they want to have that ability to help encourage the horse to go forward and not come in and stop. Really give it a good experience in the ring and have the momentum behind you to get the test going, so that the horse can relax into the test. And that might be something interesting to implement, but I don't know, otherwise.
The other thing we were talking about, it's not so much the lowest level, but 4th level, I think it's test 1. It's either test 1 or test 2, where it's not such an inviting move for the horse that is really still green at the changes, you could say. There's a movement where you come onto the center line in the canter and you half pass to the wall, and then you do your flying change just before the corner. And that's actually really quite difficult to put a horse in that position that is learning a change. It's not very inviting, because they're cantering into the corner, so they're already having the handbrake on a little bit.
Your attention on whatever is over there.
Right, your flowers, judge's hut, whatever. So it doesn't give the rider the best opportunity to prepare for the flying change. I think, you have the chance to go a little bit forward, but then because of that corner right there, they're already stalling a little bit. So it's really difficult to get that change there. So that's one of the things that we could come up with that isn't so inviting for.
But otherwise, I think they're all fairly logical in the way that they're
Yeah, they're
developed.
very systematic, and I think that they really do follow the training scale. You know, one thing we were also discussing was, you know, when you're having some issues at third level with flying changes in particular, I think that second level, although a lot of people skip second level because it's really difficult and not very well liked. You always see at the horse shows that second level, you know, first level huge, third level huge, second level like tiny. Well, yeah,
It's difficult.
nobody
it's a very difficult level.
likes it, exactly, because it's difficult, but it really does prepare the horse really well for third level.
Yeah. There's a lot of exercises that you really have to have them on the aids for, get them balanced, get them listening to you, and sets you up nicely for third level.
Yeah.
We have to do half passes and flying changes and those movements, but nobody seems to like to do it. But if you do it and you do it really well, I think it does pay off when you go to transition into third level.
It does.
Great. Yeah, we still have a few more questions, and I know time is running out. But this is from Tanya. Straightness is in the training scale second from the top. However, a horse needs to be straight in order to become through and give the rider equal contact. Lateral flexibility is required for longitudinal flexion, which is one of the first things we ask of a horse. To lift and the belly withers. Do you work on straightness at the beginning of the training as well as at the end?
I don't know if it's one of the first things that we ask of the horse, but it, yeah, I think like we said, straightness is basically trickling, is in there as soon as you take connection.
Mm-hmm.
Then the overall idea is to be able to ride your horse straight and align the horse straight through their body. So that's something that you do start quite early and work through the phases to try to improve.
I agree. I think that, like we said before, a lot of these phases are intertwined a little bit. So again, you know, it's not the first thing we do in the training scale, but it does start to trickle in a little bit in the middle of the training scale, like Jaimey said, when you're starting to take contact. So
then you're already starting to work on the alignment and give the horse the idea of becoming straight.
Right.
From Christy B, what are your thoughts, tips on a horse that anticipates the aids, offering various lateral movements, jigging, rushing,
jumping around?
Exactly.
Well, I think again, looking back at the training scale with the suppleness through the relaxation, I think we need to look at the relaxation step there, and finding a way that you can bring the horse into relaxation. I know I said this before, when I feel that the horse is getting a little nervous, a little bit jumpy, then I try to find a way to relax, quite often going back to that suppleness stage of stretching them down, bringing them to a place where they become more mentally relaxed, physically supple and relaxed, and then reapproaching the movement. And I think that's important. Again, like Tina said, this is building a foundation. So like a Lego project, as you're building Lego, the pieces, if you're building a specific building or boat or whatever, the Lego has to go in the right place for it to end up in the way it's supposed to be, to get the end product. If you miss a step and you keep building, it's never going to work. It's never going to look the way it's supposed to. It's never going to be as strong or have the functions. So then you have to take all the Lego off to the point of where you missed, fix that piece, and then go back up and keep an eye on it. So I think that's something that this would be really a good example of, is going back and trying to find that relaxation, that suppleness in some exercises and bringing it into what you're trying to do.
And the anticipation, what's important with a horse that anticipates is to really take your time and not you know, do what the horse wants to do ahead of you. So for example, if you're working on canter transitions from the walk and the horse is jogging in the walk and anticipating the canter to depart, you know, you have to, like Jaimey said, get the horse to relax in the walk calmly, in rhythm, and then quietly canter when they're not even thinking about it. Right. Sometimes that's easier said than done.
Easier said than done.
I mean, we have we have a couple of horses in the barn that I don't even know. They're so smart. I'm thinking it in my mind and they already do it, and I haven't even changed my body, you know, and given them an aid. But with smart horses, like I think Carl Hester says, you have to have smart riders. Yeah. So you just have to try to be ahead of them a couple steps and anticipate them. So, and
the other thing that I think might be happening is, you know, horses, when they start getting jiggy joggy, as she said, riders take their legs off. They take everything away, and that gives the horse more of a nervous feel. The hotter, more sensitive horses, you need to be able to put your leg on, give them confidence that you're there, your leg is there, give them confidence that you're in charge, and to push them forward. Also to desensitize them a little bit. They become a little bit too sensitive, the very hot ones. And that's where this starts from, which then comes into tension, which then gives you connection issues and rhythm issues and all of those things. So yeah, just a little bit of desensitizing, keeping the leg on when they want to get too sensitive to the leg, and finding some relaxation exercises to help you come into the moment where you're having this issue.
The next question is from Martin St. Jean. What reason would you see for the almost impossible task to get over the third level? Why so much difficulties to get flying changes?
Yeah, so that's, I think we touched on that a little bit with the second level explanation. Usually, not always, but a lot of the times when the horses don't do the flying changes, you have to go back a step or two and see what the missing link is. So sometimes they're not ready, they're not prepared.
Not on the aids.
They're not on the aids. They're anticipating.
Didn't want to do second level.
Right, yeah, exactly. So again, it comes back to taking a little bit more time to get them on the aids and prepare them that they are really ready. I think a good indication is when you are able to do canter walk, canter transitions well from one lead to the other, and that the horse is really accepting of the canter aid, the half halt to walk. And
it's a leg yield in the canter, pushing them off of your leg to prepare for a flying change.
Exactly.
Keeping them really nice and even in the connection, and be able to adjust them from one side to the other.
But every once in a while, you will come across a horse that isn't able to do the flying changes due to physical reasons.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, when you've given it a good shot and you've gone through all the steps correctly, and, you know, you've worked with a good trainer to help you, and you're still not getting clean flying changes, take a look at the horse physically with the vet to see if there are any issues that prevent the horse from being able to do the changes, because sometimes that can be a factor.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that many times where the horse just can't, and I don't, you know, they can canter on the left lead, they can canter on the right lead, but somehow going from one to the other, there's something through it seems to be through their back anyways, that they just get so excited about, tense about, and have such anxiety about it, and it's something that's very difficult as a rider, I think, to work through, and to keep your calm and keep your cool and stay relaxed, because when they're having anxiety about it already, and then you're getting frustrated, there's what?
Oh. Yeah, unfortunately, we're almost out of time.
Oh.
And it's yeah, too bad. I wanted to thank both Tina and Jaimey for your support in offering this session, and to the community. And thank you to the audience as well. If you have any questions following today, please submit them via email, and we will make every effort to get additional questions answered. A recording of this webinar will be posted on the Equestrian Canada website for future reference. And we're also hoping that this is the first of many educational webinars So please stay tuned for additional information. And I would also like to thank Celine Hutchinson and Christine Peters from Dressage Canada for all of their background support. And I hope you all have a good evening, and everyone to continue stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.